Small. Wow, tiny.
You are currently listening to Tiny Table,
where we explore TTRPGs you might not have heard of.
Whether big or small, we hope to cover them all.
Because we know that great things can come in tiny packages.
Hello and welcome to Tiny Table, where no game is too small. From rules to rolling to review, we teach RPGs so you can play too. And thank you all for joining us today for our very exciting interview with Matthew Bradford, lead developer and designer of Clutch. This is the first of our 2 interview episodes. As always, the first of these episodes goes live to all of our wonderful listeners, and then the second level of the interview is going exclusively on the micro tier of our Patreon. So if I can have everyone go around, quickly introduce themselves, and we'll end with you, Matthew, and we'd love to hear a little about you before we get into the interview.
Hi, I'm Holly, they, she, and I love Clutch.
And with that, hi, I'm Skylar, he, they, it, all interchangeable, and my voice is a little raspy from cheering on a friend earlier.
Hi, I'm Neo. I use they and him pronouns, and I'm happy to be here.
And I am, have been, and will continue to be your game mistress, Julie, she, her pronouns, and I know that it takes 20 minutes to walk a mile.
Yes! Thank you for including that. That was my favorite inclusion. I love this fact because I personally timed it myself, and I was so happy to read that in the rules. Yes, it does take 20
Reset
minutes.
the clocks, everyone. Mm-hmm. Reset the clocks.
Alrighty, Matthew, tell us a little about yourself.
Hello, yes, I'm Matthew Bradford, he, him. I am a redneck from California and a game designer. I love games like Fallout and old Elder Scrolls. I'm a pretentious nerd and an elitist prick.
You're in good company. Well, perfect. Let's jump right into our interview questions, starting with, bonds and edges are the defining features for characters in the Clutch game. In terms of format and variety, these take obvious inspiration from feats in Dungeons & Dragons and boons in Vampire the Masquerade, which are 2 famously crunchy games. How did you learn from the design failures of these games when creating your own list? And when creating an evocative and varied collection of bonds, how do you avoid repetition or cruft?
A lot of Clutch is based off of like games that are not good but could be good, like and building and changing aspects of various other games. It started out as a hack for 5e, and then introduced aspects from Chronicles of Darkness, which is the sister system of World of Darkness, specifically merits, while also perks from games like Fallout 2D20. Clutch shares a lot of other similarities with that game, but generally a lot of these games have vestigial elements that do not need to be present in the game, and class abilities or character abilities, but like no one picks, right? For example, like when has anyone ever picked the True Strike on purpose? or Blade Ward or Augury? Like,
oh yeah.
One of the core design pillars of Clutch is avoiding doing that and making every ability fun to have, if that makes sense.
You'd mentioned that the game itself grew originally from a foundation of 5e before it grew to the scope of being a game that you are playtesting and publishing and getting art and formatting and layout done for. Was this like a home table game that then kind of grew in its scope?
It was a game that I was in for maybe 3 sessions.
And you said, this sucks. I need to fix this.
It was a combination of SW5E with regular 5E.
Oof.
Or, sorry, Star Wars 5E, if for those who don't know the abbreviation.
That's so funny. Neo, you're like, oh, those must have sucked. And I was like, wow, 3 sessions gave you a whole system. Those must have been really inspirational.
It was just, the original hack was just the roll damage against defense instead of rolling to AC and then rolling damage.
Yes, I really enjoyed getting rid of roll to hit. We're playing a game that should be fun. Why are we missing? That's ridiculous. So I really liked that change.
Clutch, you can miss technically if you roll low enough. It's not fully draw steal that where you just always hit no matter what, but you're highly unlikely to.
Yes, thank you.
I totally agree with what you're saying, though, about how every bond and edge is interesting and something you would want to pick. The call out of Blade Ward really did take me out, because, yeah, who's ever taking Blade Ward? Let's be honest. But every single bond and edge, I could see a fully fleshed out character. Like, it was all so evocative. And my character that I ended up playing is like very much like kind of like a druidy, like green witch type. And like it was so easy to pick through these things to fully flesh that out. But I also was like, oh my God, if I wanted to do this flavor, I could do this. So I think you really nailed it in making everything like, maybe I do want to take that.
Yeah, when we were discussing in our post-mortem about, different things that, we liked about the system, one of the things that we talked a lot about, myself specifically, was how evocative all of the choices were. Everything felt interesting and unique to take. And it's very interesting, right? Because the list is as wide and varied as you could breathe underwater, you could shapeshift, you could have magical powers, to you could be really good at fishing. And somehow the get a bonus to fishing is just as fun and exciting to take as the rest of the list, because fish fear you. And women want you.
Not necessarily.
I think my question I want to sort of expand upon before we move on is about the situation of craft, right? How do you make sure that as you're creating all these like fun, new, exciting, flavorful things, that you keep it tight, right? Or do you want there to be like such a sprawling list of things and options you can choose and synergies you can make where, you're not too concerned about that? So like what in the design process do you try to like keep aware of when you create these?
Mainly play testing and just getting feedback from people who have played the game, but also avoiding things that are too similar to each other. Going back to D&D, there's like a million spells related to fire, where in Clutch you just have the one. Where if you want to play a pyromancer, you just pick the flame spell. I would like a robust list of abilities, and I think I created that. But it's about also avoiding redundancy and options that no one would pick.
Amazing. Well, moving on to our next question. So the survival mechanics are central to Clutch's focus on exploration. And while the world of Clutch is often magical, its moment-to-moment journeying is grounded squarely in the realities of temperature, terrain, and weather. How do you balance the Weird West with the real world in your design? Do you think you've struck the final balance of magical versus mundane in the rules?
When creating the specific base setting for Clutch, I want to strike a sort of mundane in the magical, like something that like diverges from Fallout specifically is I would like the different mutant creatures to act like animals, or game masters are running Clutch, run it more like an actual ecosystem that exists rather than another inspiration for Clutch, Stalker, where all the mutants are like psychic monstrosities that kill you in an instant.
So to kind of get an idea of what you're meaning is you're wanting all of the magic to exist, but for it not to be strange within like the fiction of the world for that magic to exist, like for the characters within it to feel like these magical creatures or these innate and strange abilities are just part of regular everyday life for them.
Yeah. You said Weird West, which isn't actually what I was going for. I was thinking more of like The Witcher set in a post-apocalyptic America, where I haven't done a lot of work on the base setting, but most of it is like lords and vassals and warlords fighting each other for territory, and that sort of aesthetic, with like a little bit of Weird West, because who doesn't like cowboys, despite the connotations cowboys often have.
It's very fair. It came through very naturally in our own play that, and I think a lot of this grew out of the kind of procedural play of the survival and exploration elements, that most of the drama is going to come from very low stakes naturalistic interactions. You don't need to have a world that's like overflowing with creatures that like crave human flesh or like are video game baddies who are designed to be killed. One of the earliest moments of combat in the game was our posse was making their way down through the bottom of a canyon, and they had procured for themselves a clutch of eggs from a nest that they intended to eat later that night. And then when they were setting up camp and keeping watch and getting ready to settle in for the evening, a collection of these cobra-headed possums jumped out and started coming at the party, but really they were coming for the eggs. They wanted a good, easy, accessible to a snake's digestive system target. So while the party was fighting off a few of them, another one just went for the eggs, swallowed a couple in its maw, and then just beelined out into the distance, and the party never caught it. It was out before they could do anything about it. And I think that moment made us all feel kind of very in and of the setting. Like, yeah, this is the kind of moment where, like, if you're going to encounter a weird creature here, it's not going to be a weird creature who shows up and, like, wants to kill you. It's a weird creature that exists and is alive and wants to live and survive, and for that it needs to fight with you for limited resources. If it can get that food, it's going to get it and it's going to go.
It is a little strange to hear that Weird West isn't, like, a specific goalpost or, like, envisioned theme. I feel like maybe when I read the inspirations of, like, oh, Red Dead Redemption, Fallout, and I believe even Death Stranding was mentioned. I'm like, okay, Death Stranding, weird, travel, survival. Then I'm like, Red Dead Redemption, well, that's very clearly like Western cowboy. And Fallout's got kind of the mix between the two in a little hybrid sense, where I think if you play on, like, you know, hard mode, there's just some survival mechanics, but it has that sort of strange kind of a Western vibe with, like, the guns and the different things mix matching with, like, weird tech that exists and different stuff. So it's interesting to see that the flavor is more, at least in the way that you envision it, a little more akin to something that's like a more classic Western fantasy, not in the Western sense, but in, like, the Witcher, or maybe even not necessarily Lord of the Rings, but that style of fantasy was something that you were envisioning, because I'm like, for me, I'm like, that's so tied with, like, I don't know, swords and shields and armor, and it's really interesting to see, like, kind of how that manifested, because in our heads we're like, oh, guns, Red Dead Redemption, cowboys, you know, cowboys meet wizards. So it's been very interesting to hear, like, the perspective versus, like, where we are as players and how we interpreted it. And I'm curious to see how that'll change. Or actually, do you think it'll change as you continue to develop this from this early alpha, where we clearly took one inspiration versus what it is you're more so feeling towards it from a design perspective?
As the setting spans the entire United States, the vibe and touchstones and aesthetics drawn upon will be very location dependent. Just hypothetically speaking, a module set in Utah is going to will probably be drawn more from, like, Weird West or cowboys than a module set in, like, Cascadia, right? If that makes sense.
That makes total sense. Like, it's gonna be totally different exploring the urban wasteland of San Francisco than it will be, I don't know how many years in the future it's going to be, so you never know, but versus, like, where we were, which was in Missouri, formerly known as Missouri, which is, you know, a nice little mixture, but in that kind of southern, kind of westernly kind of vibes. And that's an Americana thing, right? You know, setting it in a post-apocalypse America creates kind of certain flavors that are just going to show up.
It's so funny because we're talking a lot about Weird West, but to me, I really felt like we were playing Mad Max Fury Road. Like, that was, like, I feel like the flavor that our adventure really took.
You know what, since we're kind of on the topic, I think it's actually a good time to bring in our next question, because as we were just talking about, Clutch wears its inspirations on its sleeve, even including a touchstone sections that map out major video games that influence its design and structure. when the time came for you to set out and design an RPG for the first time, you said that your mechanical foundations was D20 fantasy, but what pushed you beyond boilerplate fantasy and towards these inspirations and the post-apocalyptic setting that defined Clutch? What about this genre really speaks to you?
Generally just trial and error, and originally Clutch it wasn't even going to be like traditional fantasy anyways. Clutch was going to be designed as like a generic setting, like something like GURPS or Fate. A lot of people told me, hey, there's things here that is just will not convert between different settings and genres, right? I do have other settings planned for Clutch later down the line, but if you're going to design a game, you sort of have to look at what you're making and go, why does this exist and why does this need to exist? And what separates it from what already exists, right? Which I think a lot of games don't ask themselves. So that's like, I think that's the one crime a lot of Heartbreakers have, is they're too attached to aspects of specifically D&D. Like, for instance, 4th edition, I think, did not go hard enough with its differentiation from 3rd edition.
Thank you.
You're speaking to the choir here.
Why I think Draw Steel is a better iteration on that, on the mechanical focus of games like 4th edition and Pathfinder 2e and I believe it's called Neotrad games. Like, I've been watching Matthew Colville since I was 16 in high school. Like, I have been watching the development of Draw Steel since, like, he said, I'm making a game, right? Like, back when he was talking about using funny dice for it. Along Clutch's development, there's a lot of times where I'm like, does this need to be in the game? For instance, there were 3 skills, culture, lore, and I forgot the third one, and I went, I don't need these in the game. I do not need knowledge skills to exist. There's a time when attributes could go into the negatives. I got rid of that too. There's a time where I tried making divine spellcasting. Also, that I just couldn't figure out how to do without differentiating from normal spellcasting. There's a great video by Extra Credits called Fail Faster, which is just, if you are a designer, the one lesson you need to understand is that failure is a good thing, and you need to fail a lot and fail often, right? Because that's how you learn.
100%. It sounds a lot like the impetus of the world of Clutch grew naturally out of the modes of mechanical interaction you were motivated to explore and flesh out in your own system. You started in this broad understanding of, I'm going to do something science fiction-y broadly with a combination of 5e and Star Wars 5e, and then everything kind of dominoed from there. So it's interesting to hear about a game world that grows out of a mechanical foundation and not vice versa, because I feel like those are very much two sides of the design coin, right? For every Clutch, there's a game where the notion of the fiction came first, and then all of the mechanical design is bent in the direction of, how do I design for the fiction that exists in like pure ideal form in my head? Whereas Clutch is a game that says, these are the modes of engagement I want to play with. These are the kinds of things I like about games I already play that fail or don't satisfy me in other respects. How can I make the game that's perfect for me to play? And then what world makes sense for that game? So it's interesting to hear about that side of the perspective, because I feel like often in our interviews, we've spoken to people who have gone from more of a fiction-first approach and suited the mechanics to their fictive goals in terms of like first principles and starting out. So it's interesting to hear the other side of that dynamic.
Yeah, this is I'm gonna be so real. This is mind blowing to me. Like, this is totally different from the other things that we've discussed, at least with other interviewers who we've talked to about like where their worlds come from. But when I think about it, I'm like, wait, that makes so much sense. Like, I feel like if I were to go about designing a game, the way that I build characters, and the way that I even like find new like indie games or you know, small developer titles that I really want to engage in is I will most often fall in love with the mechanics first, with what the game offers me to engage with on like a physical level, like with my mind and with my actions, and see if that is satisfying for me. And if a game can be mechanically satisfying for me for a long period of time, I will naturally get into whatever world or story it presents me. And so it's so interesting that this, I think, is one of the first times we've actually talked to a developer who has seemed to create a game from this, you know, perspective, very unique, at least from what we've engaged with so far. And in my mind, I'm just like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. At least for me personally. But it's been discussed. I'm pervert when it comes to this stuff. So, you know.
Yeah, and I want to say I think you did a really great job in the way that Matt Colville did that. You know, there is some inspiration from different fantasy heartbreakers, but Clutch really feels distinct on its own. And we talk about this in the postmortem for our playthrough of Draw Steel, that you can feel, because there was like the 3 main offshoots from D&D when the whole debacle was going on with the open gaming license. You had Daggerheart, you had Kobold Presses that nobody liked, so I don't remember the name of it. And you had...
I almost bagged that Kickstarter.
No! And you had...
I did not.
I also barely ducked that bullet when I read it, and I went, this looks like it's just a 5e again.
And you had Draw Steel, and I think you can really tell the people that took the time to be like, do we really need this, and cut it out based on how long the development was. And then I think that is directly correlated to how different it feels from 5e. So I think you did a great job of, it doesn't feel like 5e.
That is the best thing I've ever heard about my game.
Hooray! Yes, we love to dunk on 5e here. You know, speaking of your game feeling so different and the process of failing faster, previously on the show, we've actually interviewed developers at Anim about Eureka Investigative Urban Fantasy, our first partner game, and you yourself are a member of their Anim Book Club, a server run by Anim that plays and tests a variety of RPGs. How has your experience in this book club shaped Clutch's design? I know earlier you mentioned, like, how do you avoid craft, or like how do you inform that kind of decision making is through playtesting. A lot of these games are developed through rigorous playtesting. What is it like to have access to such a large and active community while designing your first game?
I do not think I would have gotten as far with Clutch if I had not joined the Anim Book Club, simply because days within joining, I posted some of the first, I forgot what specifically I posted, but probably the mountain rules or the environmental rules, specifically like for biomes and weather. And they're really encouraging, while some of my more personal friends who are not as into survival-based games were more like, are you sure about this? I have met some of my greatest friends there, and I have most of my playtesters come from the Anim Book Club, people I've met through just hanging out in VC or people who I've talked to about Clutch when I post work about it. They're actually playing Clutch right now, though probably by the time this goes out, they will be finished because the module is extremely short. And as people play, it's nice hearing positive feedback and even like small critiques and calling out of typos and stuff. There is a small number of people that every time I interact with them, I would call it spiritually taxing.
That's Discord, baby.
And that's the hazards of a large community in general.
True.
Yeah. Relatively few times I've interacted with the Anim team themselves. They've been extremely positive. Every time I post, it's like artwork for Clutch or mechanics for Clutch. Chills is always in the your own TTRPG work, like going, hey, this is cool.
We love Chills.
Before we move on to our next question, you mentioned a module. we kind of made up just our own little one-shot adventure, and by we, I mean Julie lovingly wrote us out a little adventure and thing for us to explore. But I was not aware that there was a small module out. I'd love to hear just a little bit about that before we continue on with the rest of the interview, if that's all right.
It is essentially a tutorial, like to teach the general procedures of travel and random encounters in combat to a new group of people, as well as also like fishing mechanics and like using boats.
Yes.
It takes place in the Mojave Desert, which is entirely flooded and is now a marshland. The players are traveling to Boulder City, it's sort of an introduction to my more actual module, Boulder City Blues, which is a like sandbox. I don't want to say hex crawl because Clutch is not a hex crawl, but point crawl, sort of sandbox based adventure module around Boulder City and like the people that live there now.
Yo, as our representative from Colorado here, big shout outs to all my gang out in Boulder. Hell yeah, you love to see the representation.
Boulder City, Nevada.
Fuck!
I mean, you know, there's a Paris, France in like so many states. There's like several Parises in the United States, so you know, there's a lot of boulders.
I really do wish there was a Paris, France in the United States, a city where the name of just the city is Paris, France, because that would be great. I took some inspiration from the opening module for Boulder City Blues. I chose not to run it for the table because I knew that, like, with Draw Steel, I felt comfortable running the Delian Tomb because I knew that by the time we had the show out, they'd already be deep into their campaigns for, like, Dark Heart of the Woods and Crack the Sun, and, like, there would be other official modules and stuff for players excited about the game to jump into and play right away. Whereas with Clutch, you know, it's not literally a solo production, but it's pretty darn close to a solo production in terms of the overall creative, you know, ethos of the game. And I know that there's only the one intro module, so I wanted to leave that fresh for folks who heard the podcast, got inspired and wanted to play Clutch for themselves, and wanted to play something that wasn't, like, spoiled for them. But I did take inspiration from the idea that the Great Mojave Desert had been flooded, and I inverted that and said that the marshlands of Missouri had gone bone dry. And the game focused on moving through the Mississippi Canyon, a Grand Canyon-esque divide where the Mississippi River used to be, all of which was kind of built around avoiding the cruel and watchful eye of the Deadwood Saint in the area of Misery, formerly Missouri. So even just from reading the module you've already created, my wheels were spinning on coming up with fun ways to, like, invert and corrupt, like, iconic parts of the American landscape in ways that led to, like, exciting new adventures and places that felt both fundamentally American but also, like, alien and bizarre. And with that, moving on to our final question for this public half of the interview. After Clutch's core rules are finished, what is next for your design? Do you imagine that Clutch will be a core engine that you support with supplemental material? I realize you've answered this a little bit. You've mentioned you want to do other settings for Clutch. But beyond that, is it important to you to move on to another game? What lessons have you learned from designing Clutch that you're excited to bring forward into your subsequent design work?
Definitely want to do more for Clutch. After the core engine is done, definitely plan on doing modules and additional settings, and then modules for those additional settings. One thing I have is called Sandsea, which is a lot of my design ideas are based around that. Well, the people who make this aren't making this anymore, so I'm going to make it instead. And Wizards isn't making any Dark Sun material, so I'm just going to make my own Dark Sun.
Yeah. And they never will.
And Sandsea is a diesel punk, post-apocalyptic fantasy world. Everyone is collected in these giant oasis cities ruled by vampires and demon lords. And travel between these cities are done with giant, massive, like, bronze and steel sand ships that, like, are propelled with basically jet engines, and they're basically giant jet skis.
God, that fucking rules, dog.
So fucking awesome.
That's so dope.
That shit's so cool. Oh my god.
I'm mad I can't play this right now. That is so dope.
And another one is sort of based off of what the original D&D game that Clutch spawned out of is called Void Colony, which is sci-fi fantasy where in the past of the game, but in the future of us right now, several universes collided together, sort of conjunction of the sphere style from Witcher, and now like parallel Earths exists on in the same universe, and entire planets are displaced, and that's how you get magic and psionics, and there's different like alternate Earths. So there's an Earth where humans evolved during the Cretaceous period. So they have like dinosaurs and they're like Bronze Age. There's an Earth that spawned without its sun during the 1990s and everyone died.
And I guess in this theoretical world, Neo and I's characters, we played twins. They wouldn't be twins. They would just be two guys who are the same guy but from two different alternate worlds.
And of course have like an actual setting guide to the Heartland, which is what the actual base setting is called, going into the more specific details, but also not trying to hold down any specific canon. I would like the base setting to have more of something that's into like the Wild Sea, where like people can make it their own thing a little bit.
Well, that's fantastic. So obviously, guys, make sure you're keeping up with Clutch if you want to be able to play any of these sick-ass systems and settings. But Matthew, thank you so much for being here, our part 1 interview. And like we said at the beginning of the episode, we will have a part 2 to this on our Patreon. But before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to plug?
Yeah, my one of my artists, Squiddy, forgot what her name is specifically on Tumblr. I can send the link later. My friend Sapphic Dice on Tumblr, she makes good TTRPGs as well. The Anime Book Club. Thing is, I know a lot of designers, but none of them are finished.
Classic.
A very common thing with designs. It's never done. Always something to do.
Hey, send them our way, because that's the point of the show half the time.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And again, if you want to check out part 2, go to our Patreon. But until then, 3, 2, 1, Clutch!
All right. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for listening.
And thank you again, Matthew.
Later, everyone. Thank you so much, Matthew. It was wonderful to have you
Why
on the
am
show.
I waving? They can't see me.
I know. I'm always doing that. I'm always making facial expressions, and I'm like, no one can see me. Why am I doing that?
No one's here.
It's an audio-only medium.
Hi, and thank you for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, then we'd really appreciate if you left us a review. If you really like what we do here and want to support us further, you can join us at patreon.com/tinytablepodcast. Our business email is also open for inquiries at tinytablebusiness@gmail.com, and all of our socials can be found in the episode description for any shenanigans you might want to follow. Till next time, see ya!